So how does a nation with over 1 billion people even begin to define itself? Well, for India, the answer starts on a single, really powerful page, the preamble to its constitution. Some people have called it the master key to the whole country, so let's see what it unlocks.
You know, the great jurist N.A. Palkhivala came up with the perfect description for it. He called it the identity card of the Constitution, and that's such a brilliant way to think about it, right? Just like your ID card tells someone who you are at a glance, the preamble gives you the fundamental identity and purpose of the entire Indian Constitution.
And that simple idea brings up two huge questions that we're going to dig into. First, what exactly is written on this constitutional ID card? And, maybe even more important, who gets to carry it?
Okay, so to tackle that first question, what's on the card, we've got to look at the preamble as the nation's ultimate mission statement. And this isn't just some fancy legal jargon. This is the core philosophy, the absolute game plan that's supposed to guide the entire country.
And it kicks off with what are arguably the three most important words in the entire document: "We, the people of India." Now, this is not just a poetic way to start things off. It is a declaration. It establishes, right from the get-go, that all the authority, all the power of the Constitution, it flows directly from the citizens themselves.
What's pretty amazing is just how much this one paragraph actually does. It's built to do 4 really key things. First, as we just saw, it names the source of all authority, the people. Then, it goes on to define the very nature of the Indian state. It lays out these huge objectives, the promises it's making. And finally, it stamps the date of adoption, locking it into history.
Let's zero in on those objectives for a second, because this is really the heart of the promise. The preamble is aiming to secure these 4 golden goals for every single citizen: justice in all its forms, liberty of thought and belief, equality of status and of opportunity, and fraternity, to make sure everyone has dignity and the nation stays united. These aren't just pretty words. They're the benchmarks for the entire nation.
But there was a massive problem. For years, this huge debate was raging. Was this beautiful mission statement just a nice philosophical intro, or did it have actual legal power? This question ended up putting the preamble itself on trial in the highest court in the land.
So the core of the conflict was this: could judges actually use the preamble to make legal decisions? Could lawmakers be held to what it says? I mean, this was no small question. The very soul of the Constitution was hanging in the balance, and this fight went all the way to the Supreme Court. So this whole legal drama played out over 2 major cases. At first, back in the 1960 Berubari Union case, the Supreme Court said, no, the preamble is not a part of the Constitution. It's just a preface. But then, 13 years later, a landmark case, Kesavananda Bharati, changed absolutely everything. The court did a complete 180 and rejected that old view.
The verdict from that 1973 case settled the debate once and for all. The Supreme Court declared that yes, the preamble is an integral part of the Constitution. It's not just an opening page, it's woven right into the fabric of Indian law.
And out of this massive legal fight came one of the most powerful concepts in Indian law, the basic structure doctrine. Essentially, the court said that while Parliament can amend the Constitution, it can't destroy its core identity, its fundamental principles. And where do you find that core identity? You guessed it, right in the preamble. This basically turned the preamble into the ultimate guardian of the Constitution's soul.
So if the preamble is so fundamental, can it ever be changed? Well, the answer is yes. But as you're about to see, it is incredibly rare for anyone to try and edit this particular blueprint.
In more than 70 years, the preamble has been amended exactly 1 time. Just once. That single number tells you just how sacred and foundational this text really is.
So that one amendment, it happened back in 1976, during the period of the national emergency. The 42nd Amendment Act was passed, and it forever changed the text that was first adopted way back in 1949.
So what was the big change? Well, it was just 3 words. The amendment inserted socialist and secular to explicitly define the nature of the state, and it added the word integrity to the promise of national unity. Now, it's worth noting that these ideas were kind of already implied in the Constitution, but this change, it put them right up front, right on the nation's ID card for everyone to see.
And all of this brings us back to our second big question. We've looked at what's written on the ID card. But now, who are the people this card speaks for? Who actually gets to carry this identity?
We started with these incredibly powerful words, and we have to come back to them now. Because that phrase, "we the people," it raises such a profound question. Who is actually included in that we?
Defining that is one of the most critical things any nation has to do.
The preamble makes this amazing promise, but it doesn't list the qualifications to receive it. So who exactly are the people who are guaranteed justice, liberty, and equality? Who counts as an Indian citizen?
To get the answer, you have to look beyond the preamble itself. The specifics are laid out in Part 2 of the Constitution and, crucially, in a law passed by Parliament, the Citizenship Act of 1955. This is where the grand philosophy of the preamble gets translated into actual legal reality.
And that 1955 Act lays it all out pretty clearly. It sets up the pathways to acquire citizenship. You know, things like being born in India, having Indian parents, or through residency over time. And it also defines the ways you can lose it, like if you voluntarily give it up, or if you become a citizen of another country, or in some pretty rare cases, if the government revokes it.
And this brings us to one final, powerful thought to leave you with. The preamble is this grand, sweeping promise of justice, liberty, and equality for the people. The laws of citizenship are the mechanism that defines who the people actually are. Which makes you wonder, right? Is the act of defining citizenship the ultimate test of how a nation truly keeps its founding promise?